The galaxy found humans funny, not in a nice way. Ever since Earth joined the wider space community 50 years ago, advanced alien species looked down on them. They called human ships primitive metal cans, and human science barely past throwing rocks. Noah Sullivan knew this all too well. As captain of Earth's experimental fleet, he sat through countless meetings where alien representatives smiled with too many teeth while explaining why humans couldn't join important councils or access better technology. "They need another 1,000 years at least," said Ambassador Axel Foran of the Celestial Alliance during last month's conference. The ambassadors around him nodded, their various appendages and sensory organs showing amusement in 30 different biological ways. Noah had smiled politely while his stomach turned. The Celestial Alliance controlled most of known space. Their ships could cross galaxies in days, their weapons could destroy stars, and their medicine could regrow limbs. Next to them, humanity seemed like children playing with toys. But Noah knew something they didn't. In his office aboard the lunar military base, Noah reviewed reports from Earth's secret research stations. The door chimed, and Lieutenant Olivia Martinez entered, her face serious despite her youth. "Captain, you need to see this," she said, placing a data tablet on his desk. "I was monitoring Alliance communications as ordered. They're laughing about us again, but something's different." Noah scrolled through the decoded messages. The usual mockery was there, but underneath ran a current of concern. "They know something's happening, but they don't know what," Olivia said. "Security protocols are working." Noah nodded. "Project Hypercube remains classified." "Good." Project Hypercube started 10 years ago, when physicist Dr. Adam Clark discovered strange energy patterns that suggested existence beyond the standard dimensions. Most scientists dismissed his findings as measurement errors. The Alliance representatives who reviewed his published work actually recorded themselves laughing about cute human theories. What they didn't know was that Dr. Clark's public papers contained only a fraction of his discoveries. The rest went straight to Earth Defense Force research labs. Noah stood and looked out his window at the blue-white curve of Earth below. How soon until the Transcendence is ready? Final systems checked tomorrow. Launch capability in 3 days. Noah allowed himself a small smile. And the Alliance representatives. "They've requested another advisory session with our engineers. They want to help us understand basic warp principles again." Both officers exchanged knowing looks. These advisory sessions were thinly disguised intelligence-gathering operations. The Alliance couldn't believe humans could advance without their guidance, so they constantly offered help while looking for signs of stolen technology. "Schedule it for next week," Noah said, "after our test." "Yes, sir. Also, we detected unusual energy emissions from an Alliance vessel near Neptune. They may have enhanced sensors pointed our way." Noah considered this. "Let them look. Our outer facilities show nothing unusual." The truth lay buried in underground complexes and inside hollowed-out asteroids where Earth's greatest minds worked on the impossible. They weren't building better engines or stronger weapons, not exactly. They were reaching beyond the universe itself. Later that evening, as Noah prepared for sleep in his quarters, his secure communication panel lit up. The message was brief. "Dimensional stabilization achieved. Hypercube core online. We're ready." Noah felt a chill run through him. Humanity had been laughed at, dismissed, and patronized by beings who thought themselves vastly superior. For 50 years, they had smiled and nodded while making plans. Soon, the Celestial Alliance would understand just how wrong they had been about Earth. The seventh dimension was about to change everything. Dr. Eleanor Gray stood in the heart of the Hypercube facility, deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Screens all around her showed data that would make most physicists question their sanity. She tucked a strand of graying hair behind her ear and pointed to a simulation. "The seventh dimension exists perpendicular to time itself," she explained to Captain Sullivan, who had arrived hours earlier. "It's not just about moving through space differently. It's about existing differently." Beside her, Chief Engineer Jack Wilson nodded. His hands were calloused from years of turning theoretical science into working machinery. We're not just building a ship that travels. We're building one that can change its fundamental relationship with reality. 10 years ago, when Eleanor first proposed her theories, even Earth's top scientists had laughed. Impossible, they said. Dimensional science beyond the fourth dimension is purely theoretical, they insisted. The Celestial Alliance representatives who reviewed her early papers had been even more dismissive. The little humans think they can touch higher dimensions, one had commented. Next they'll try to bottle gravity in cans. Eleanor had smiled and returned to her lab. She didn't argue or defend her work. Instead, she proved it, step by careful step. Jack walked Noah over to a massive window overlooking the construction bay. Below them sat the EDF Transcendence, unlike any vessel humans had built before. It wasn't aerodynamic. It didn't need to be. Parts of it seemed to fade from view at certain angles, and its hull contained materials that shouldn't exist according to conventional physics. We call the core technology the hypercube drive, Jack explained. But that's an oversimplification. It doesn't just move the ship, it transitions its very existence across dimensional planes. Noah studied the vessel with a mixture of awe and concern. And you're sure it's safe? Eleanor laughed softly. Safe? No, but we've done everything possible to protect the crew. The human mind isn't designed to perceive higher dimensions. That's why we've created specialized interfaces and perception filters. Their conversation was interrupted by an alarm. Security Chief Paul Rodriguez burst into the room. We've detected unusual radiation patterns near the west entrance, he reported, consistent with Alliance cloaking technology. Jack swore under his breath. They're trying to spy again. Let them, Eleanor said calmly. Our outer facilities show only conventional research. They won't get past the first 5 security layers. Noah frowned. We can't risk them discovering anything. They won't, Eleanor assured him. And in 3 days, it won't matter anymore. Later, as they toured the Transcendence's interior, Noah met his crew. The ship required minimal personnel, just 5 for its maiden voyage. Each had been chosen not just for their skills, but for their psychological resilience. The ship looks incomplete, Noah observed, noticing strange gaps in the corridors and rooms that seemed to shift when viewed from different angles. That's because part of it exists where we can't fully perceive, Jack explained. The Transcendence is already partially phased into higher dimensions. When the drive activates, these spaces will make perfect sense. Noah ran his hand along a wall that felt simultaneously solid and not quite there. And you're sure I'm the right person to command this? Eleanor placed a hand on his shoulder. Every simulation, every psychological profile says yes. You can adapt to impossible situations better than anyone else in the fleet. You'll need that where you're going. That night, Noah studied the ship's specifications again. The Transcendence wasn't just Earth's newest vessel. It was humanity's statement to the galaxy. After centuries of looking up at the stars and decades of being laughed at by those who lived among them, humans were about to change the rules of reality itself. Tomorrow, they would take the first step beyond the boundaries that even the mighty Celestial Alliance couldn't cross. The launch day arrived with little ceremony. No speeches, no crowds, no media, only necessity and purpose. The Transcendence left Earth's orbit looking like an ordinary research vessel. Its true nature remained hidden beneath conventional hull plates and false energy signatures. Noah sat in the command chair, feeling its strange contours adjust to his body. Around him, the minimal crew worked at stations that seemed to shift subtly when not directly observed. Navigation systems ready, announced Daniel Frost, a young officer with an unusual talent for spatial reasoning. His fingers danced across controls that occasionally disappeared and reappeared. Systems nominal and stable, reported Victoria Reyes from her station. Her background in theoretical mathematics made her one of the few people who could actually understand the ship's operations. Hypercube core at standby capacity. Noah took a deep breath. Begin pre-activation sequence. The lights dimmed as power redirected to the dimensional drive. On the main screen, the stars looked normal for now. Alliance monitoring vessels still tracking us. Victoria noted. They think we're testing a new propulsion system, nothing more. Noah nodded. Let's not disappoint them. Take us to the test coordinates. The Transcendents moved away from Earth, accelerating to conventional speeds that would seem impressive but not impossible to alien observers. They reached the empty space beyond Mars' orbit, where they could activate the drive safely away from populated areas. All systems ready for dimensional shift, Daniel reported. His voice held excitement, barely contained by professionalism. Noah opened a secure channel. Control, this is Transcendence. We are prepared for first stage activation. Dr. Gray's voice came through clearly. Understood, Captain. Remember, this initial test is just a partial shift. Don't attempt full dimensional transition regardless of readings. Acknowledged, Noah replied. Beginning activation in 3, 2, 1. Daniel pressed the sequence, and the universe changed. At first, nothing seemed different. Then Noah noticed the stars. They weren't just points of light anymore. They had depth, dimension, histories visible as trailing light streams through time itself. The crew gasped collectively. Partial shift achieved. Victoria whispered, her voice filled with wonder. We're seeing into the 5th dimension. Then the problems began. Warning alarms blared as sections of the ship started to phase inconsistently. Power fluctuation in the dimensional stability field. Victoria shouted, frantically working her controls. Noah felt a strange sensation, as if parts of his body were stretching into directions that shouldn't exist. The view screen showed impossible colors and shapes as reality itself bent around them. We're shifting too deeply, Daniel called out. 7th dimensional threshold approaching. Abort sequence. Noah ordered, fighting waves of disorientation. Victoria's fingers blurred across her panel. The drive won't disengage. Something's pulling us in. For a moment, though moment had lost all meaning, the Transcendence existed partially in the 7th dimension. Noah saw everything at once. Past, present, future, every possible configuration of matter, thoughts made visible, concepts taking physical form. And something saw them back. Noah couldn't describe it later. It wasn't a being or an entity in any conventional sense. It was a presence that existed across all dimensions, briefly aware of the tiny ship that had brushed against its domain. Then emergency systems engage. Reality snapped back like an elastic band, and the Transcendence returned fully to normal space. Silence filled the bridge. Every crew member sat stunned, minds struggling to process what they had experienced. Status report. Noah finally managed, his voice hoarse. Victoria checked her readings, all systems returning to normal parameters. But Captain, we recorded everything. The data they brought back changed scientific understanding overnight. Theories that had taken centuries to develop were proven or disproven in moments. Equations describing reality needed to be completely rewritten. And somewhere in the depths of space, the Celestial Alliance's monitoring vessels reported unusual energy readings they couldn't explain. The first hint that humans had achieved something thought impossible. The emergency assembly hall of the Celestial Alliance hummed with worried conversations. Representatives from 200 advanced species gathered in the massive chamber orbiting Alpha Centauri. Normally, such meetings took months to arrange. This one had been called within hours. Galactic Overseer Jetmac strode to the central platform. His crystalline body structure captured and reflected light in patterns that expressed deep concern. The hall fell silent. 3 standard days ago, our monitoring stations detected an energy signature unlike anything in our records, he began without preamble. The source was a human vessel near Mars. Our initial assessment suggested experimental propulsion testing. Holograms appeared above the assembly, showing the Transcendence and the strange energy patterns it had produced. Further analysis indicates this was not merely advanced propulsion. Jetmack continued. The humans appear to have briefly accessed higher dimensional planes, something our scientists have theorized but never achieved. Shocked murmurs spread through the chamber. A representative from the Volari Confederacy rose, her feathered crest flaring. "Impossible," she declared. "Humans lack the scientific foundation to achieve such technology. They must have stolen research." Jetmack's crystalline form pulsed. "Our investigation finds no evidence of theft. All indications suggest they developed this independently, in secret, while we—" he paused, "while we dismissed their capabilities." The implications settled heavily on the assembly. For decades, the Alliance had controlled technological advancement across the galaxy, carefully managing which species received what knowledge. Humans had been deemed too aggressive, too unpredictable to receive anything beyond basic interstellar travel technology. "What do they intend with this technology?" asked another representative. "Unknown," replied Jetmack, "but the military applications are obvious. A vessel that can partially exist in higher dimensions would be untouchable by our conventional weapons." The assembly erupted in panicked discussion. Jetmack raised his appendages for silence. "I have dispatched diplomatic envoys to Earth demanding inspection of this technology and oversight of its development." Back on Earth, Noah Sullivan stood in the secure conference room as the United Earth government's president faced the Alliance envoys. The aliens had arrived with unusual speed, their sleek ships having covered interstellar distances in mere days. "This technology represents a potential threat to galactic stability," stated the lead envoy, a tall, insectoid being. "The Celestial Alliance requests immediate access to your research facilities and the experimental vessel." The president, a calm woman with decades of diplomatic experience, smiled politely. "We appreciate your concern, but Earth's technological developments remain sovereign matters." "Perhaps we haven't made ourselves clear," the envoy chittered. "This isn't a request that can be refused. The Alliance oversees all significant technological advancements for the good of all species." Noah stepped forward. "You mean you control who gets what technology to maintain your advantage?" The envoy's compound eyes shifted toward him. "Captain Sullivan, your vessels' activities have caused great concern." "Concern or fear?" Noah asked quietly. The diplomatic meeting ended with no resolution. Within days, Alliance battleships began appearing near Jupiter, positioning themselves between Earth and the outer solar system. Each vessel dwarfed Earth's largest ships and carried weapons that could devastate continents. In the Lunar Command Center, Noah received his new orders. "They're positioning for intimidation, not immediate attack," said General Claire Howard, pointing to the tactical display. "But make no mistake, this is the beginning of a blockade." Noah studied the positions of the Alliance fleet. "What are our orders?" "Prepare the Transcendents for defensive deployment," she replied. "Earth's conventional forces will mobilize, but we harbor no illusions about our chances in a direct confrontation." Noah thought about his crew, about what they had experienced in that brief touch with higher dimensions. "And if they attack?" General Howard's expression hardened. "Then you show them exactly what humanity has achieved while they were busy laughing at us." That night, as Noah briefed his crew, Alliance ships continued to gather. The solar system stood on the edge of conflict, and the fate of humanity would rest on technology that defied understanding. The ultimatum came at dawn Earth time. Alliance communication systems broadcast simultaneously to every device on the planet. "Humanity will surrender all dimensional technology research and the experimental vessel within 6 hours, or we will be forced to take preventive action." The message was clear. The Alliance had moved from diplomacy to threats. In the lunar launch bay, Noah watched as his crew made final preparations. The Transcendents had been modified based on data from their first partial shift. Victoria had worked with Dr. Gray to refine the dimensional stabilizers. Daniel had recalibrated navigation systems to account for their new understanding of higher dimensional space. "Are we really going to fight the entire Alliance?" Daniel asked, his voice low as he checked navigation systems. Noah shook his head. Our orders are to defend, not attack. We're a demonstration, not an invasion force. Victoria looked up from her station. A demonstration of what exactly? That humanity is no longer to be dismissed. Noah replied. That we've surpassed boundaries they thought impossible. The launch countdown proceeded without ceremony. As the Transcendents cleared lunar orbit, they could see Alliance vessels moving into aggressive formation near Earth. Alliance command vessels broadcasting tactical orders, Victoria reported. They're preparing first strike weapons. Multiple targeting systems have locked onto our position. Noah straightened in his command chair. Begin hypercube drive activation sequence. Full power this time. Victoria's eyes widened. Full power. But we don't have a choice. Partial dimensional shift won't be enough. The ship hummed as the drive powered up, systems channeling energy in patterns that defied conventional physics. On the view screen, they watched Alliance weapons platforms rotating toward Earth. Drive reaching critical threshold, Victoria announced. Dimensional shift in 3, 2, 1. The universe transformed around them. This time, there was no gradual transition. The Transcendents fully entered seventh-dimensional space, becoming something that three-dimensional beings couldn't properly perceive. On Alliance vessels, sensors went wild. Their targeting systems showed the Transcendents in multiple locations simultaneously. Weapon locks failed as the ship existed at all possible positions within a quantum probability field. Alliance vessels firing. Victoria called out, though her voice sounded strange, as if coming from multiple times at once. Noah watched as energy beams and projectiles passed harmlessly through space where the Transcendents appeared to be. The ship wasn't dodging. It simply wasn't fully present in the dimension where the weapons existed. We have offensive capabilities. Noah asked, fighting disorientation as his mind struggled with seventh-dimensional perception. Theoretical ones, Victoria replied. We can manipulate energy states across dimensional boundaries. Noah nodded. Target weapon systems only. Disable, don't destroy. Victoria's fingers danced across controls that shifted and reformed under her touch. The Transcendents projected energy across dimensional planes, appearing at multiple points in normal space simultaneously. Alliance vessels found their weapon systems suddenly existing in different energy states. Power cores fluctuated as the fundamental forces holding them stable were gently altered. Shields failed as their projection points existed in slightly different timeframes. Noah watched with a mixture of awe and concern as one of the largest Alliance battleships drifted powerless, its energy systems reconfigured at a quantum level. This is beyond anything we simulated, Victoria whispered. Within minutes, 7 Alliance vessels had been neutralized without destruction. No lives lost, but their technological advantage completely negated. On the Alliance command ship, panic spread as nothing in their extensive battle histories had prepared them for this. Their sensors couldn't properly track the Transcendents. Their weapons couldn't touch it. And most disturbing of all, their own technology was being manipulated at a fundamental level they couldn't counter. It's appearing in 3 locations simultaneously. Dimensional readings off the scale. Weapons non-responsive. Shield generators exist in multiple quantum states. Noah could almost feel the Alliance's confidence shattering. The mighty Celestial Alliance, who had laughed at human technology for decades, now faced something they couldn't comprehend, let alone defeat. Chaos overwhelmed the Alliance command structure. Overseer Jet Mac watched in disbelief as battle data flooded his control center. The crystalline patterns of his body flashed with confusion and fear. Impossible readings from all sectors, reported his science officer. The human vessel exists in multiple states simultaneously. Our sensors cannot establish a coherent target. Deploy the phase lock cannons, Jet Mac ordered. They cannot exist outside normal spacetime forever. But the phase lock cannons, weapons designed to force objects back into normal space, found nothing to lock onto. The Transcendence wasn't hiding in another dimension. It was existing across multiple dimensions at once. Aboard the Transcendence, the situation was equally chaotic, though for different reasons. The crew struggled with the psychological impact of seventh-dimensional existence. Human minds weren't built to process reality this way. Noah gripped his command chair as perception shifted around him. He could see the past and future positions of Alliance vessels simultaneously. He could perceive the energy flows through their systems as transparent overlays across time. "Captain," Victoria called, her voice strained. "I'm discovering something extraordinary about our position." She looked different now. Noah could see traces of her past and future selves overlaid on her present form. "We're not just observing multiple dimensions. We can influence causality itself." Daniel groaned from his station, hands pressed against his temples. "It's too much. My mind can't process all the navigational possibilities." Noah fought through his own disorientation. "Victoria, explain what you mean." "From our perspective, time-space is malleable," she said, wonder breaking through her strain. "We can nudge reality in certain directions without directly interfering." A secure communication channel suddenly activated. Dr. Gray's voice came through, though it seemed to arrive before she spoke. "Captain, we're monitoring your dimensional positioning. You've achieved something we only theorized." Her excitement was palpable. "You can manipulate probability fields around Alliance vessels, not directly changing their reality, but influencing which potential outcomes become actual." Noah understood immediately. "We can cause system failures without attacking." "Precisely," Dr. Gray confirmed. "Focus on creating probability fields where their weapons systems experience unlikely but possible failures." The crew adapted quickly, their minds beginning to function in new ways under the pressure. Victoria found she could perceive energy flows across dimensional boundaries and redirect them subtly. Daniel discovered he could navigate through possibility spaces rather than physical ones. Noah guided them, focusing their efforts on Alliance weapon systems. One by one, the mighty vessels experienced cascading failures, not through direct attack, but through improbable component breakdowns and power fluctuations. Meanwhile, on the Alliance command ship, Jetmac faced rebellion from his officers. "We cannot fight this," insisted his tactical commander. "Their technology operates on principles beyond our understanding." "They are merely humans," Jetmac argued, but his voice lacked conviction. "No," replied his science officer. "Whatever they have become in that vessel, they are not merely anything." Reports continued to flood in. More ships disabled, weapons systems failing through seemingly random but catastrophic errors. And most disturbing, the human vessel appearing to predict Alliance tactical decisions before they were made. Then came the final blow. The Transcendence briefly manifested directly within the Alliance flagship's command center, not physically present, but as a dimensional shadow that existed across multiple planes of reality. For a moment, Jetmac and his officers saw Noah Sullivan and his crew, their forms overlapping with past and future states, perceiving everything at once. Then they vanished, leaving behind absolute silence. Jetmac's crystalline form dimmed with the first emotion humans had never seen in the Alliance leadership: humility. "Signal all vessels," he ordered quietly. "Full retreat. Abandon disabled ships." As Alliance vessels capable of movement began withdrawing, the Transcendence's crew felt relief wash over them. Victoria monitored the retreat while Daniel struggled to maintain their dimensional positioning. "We did it," Victoria whispered. "They're leaving." But Noah saw the cost in his crew's eyes. Existing in higher dimensions had changed them in ways they didn't yet understand. They had touched something profound, and it had touched them back. "Take us home," Noah ordered. "Return to normal space." The formal recognition came 3 weeks later. The Celestial Alliance Council, in an unprecedented move, acknowledged humanity as a Tier 1 civilization with full sovereign rights and representation. Gone were the condescending speeches about developing species and guided advancement. Noah watched the ceremony from a hospital bed. The crew of the Transcendence had all required medical treatment after their return. Their brains showed unusual activity patterns, after effects of perceiving reality beyond human evolutionary limits. Your mind is still trying to process what it experienced, Dr. Samantha Wells explained as she checked his neural scans. It's like your brain rewired itself to accommodate seventh-dimensional perception, and now it's struggling to readjust. Noah nodded. He still saw echoes sometimes, moments from the past and future overlapping with the present, probability fields surrounding objects. Will it fade? Dr. Wells smiled sympathetically. We think so. But you may never perceive reality quite the same way again. At Earth's military headquarters, Alliance representatives met with human leaders under very different circumstances than before. The abandoned Alliance vessels had yielded technological insights that would have taken humanity centuries to develop independently. We propose a knowledge exchange, said the new Alliance envoy, a being of pure energy contained in a specialized field. Gone was the condescension, replaced with cautious respect, under carefully managed protocols. Earth's president nodded. We accept your proposal. Humanity has much to learn about the galaxy, and perhaps something to teach as well. Dr. Eleanor Gray and Jack Wilson had become overnight celebrities, though they avoided public appearances. The strain of their achievement showed in their faces as they reviewed data from the encounter and prepared plans for the next generation of dimensional vessels. We need to refine the interface systems, Eleanor said, studying the crew's medical reports. Human minds need better protection from dimensional bleed-through. Jack nodded, his fingers tracing new design schematics. And the stabilization field needs to be more selective. We want to control which dimensional aspects we interact with. In a quiet garden outside the recovery facility, Victoria met with Daniel. Both still struggled with perception shifts, moments when reality seemed to flicker between states of being. Do you regret it? Daniel asked, watching a butterfly that seemed to exist at multiple points in its flight path simultaneously. Victoria considered the question. No. We changed humanity's place in the universe. But I wonder what we changed in ourselves. Daniel nodded. I dreamed in 7 dimensions last night. It made perfect sense until I woke up. Across the galaxy, word spread quickly. The species that had been dismissed, mocked, and held back had achieved what the mighty Alliance could not. New diplomatic channels opened as distant civilizations sought contact with Earth directly rather than through Alliance intermediaries. On the 58th day after what historians would later call the Transcendence event, Noah Sullivan received new orders. He would command not just one seventh-dimensional vessel, but Earth's first exploratory fleet equipped with hypercube technology. Before accepting, he visited the dry dock where the Transcendence was being refitted. The ship looked different now, redesigned with knowledge gained from their first journey. Parts of it still seemed to shift and change when viewed from different angles, a reminder of its unique nature. Are you sure you want me back in command? Noah asked General Howard as they observed the work. The medical team says we're all permanently altered by the experience. That's precisely why it must be you, she replied. No one else can understand what you've seen. No one else can guide us through what comes next. As the sun set over the facility, Noah thought about how quickly everything had changed. 3 months ago, humanity had been laughed at by the galaxy's powers. Now, those same powers approached with caution and respect. The journey had cost them more than anyone had expected. His crew still struggled with their altered perceptions. Scientists worked day and night to understand the implications of higher dimensional physics. Military strategists grappled with the responsibilities of their new position. But as Noah looked up at the stars, stars he had seen in ways no human was meant to see, he knew this was just the beginning. Humanity had stepped beyond the boundaries of conventional reality, and the universe would never be the same again. Neither would they.